What if a single render could show everything? The inside, the outside, the structure, the activity, and even the story of how your building works. That's the magic of a perspective section. And today I'll show you how I created this perspective section almost entirely inside of D5 Render while running on the HP Z6 G5A. Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Steven and this is part of a video series that I am building with the same project, the same software, and the same hardware. You can check out the first video on this series right here. The design has evolved a bit since then and will keep evolving a bit more, so you might spot some differences from one video to the other, but trust me, there are more videos coming soon around the same project, and I'm really excited to show you all of the things and all of the different drawings, renders, and representations that I've done with it. As always, you'll find timestamps below to navigate to your favorite parts of the video, or you can just sit back, grab a cup of coffee and enjoy. Oh, and stay until the end because I'll show you an AI trick inside of D5 Render that completely changes the mood of this image in seconds, and it might want to just change how you approach your next render. Who knows? As some of you know, perspective sections normally aren't required in a competition entry, but every time someone includes one, it instantly stands out. They make judges pause. They tell a story the plan or the elevation never could. Why? Because they expose everything. They show the beauty, the details, the program of the building, and if you're not careful, they can even show the, oh, sorry, I didn't have time to finish that part areas. But when done right, they explain a project in seconds, how it functions, how it breathes, and how it connects to its surroundings. Now, one of my favorite references for perspective sections is definitely, without a doubt, the Manual of Section book. This book is kind of a Bible for the lovers of perspective sections, and this book shows famous buildings, iconic buildings, only through sections. No renders, no plans, no diagrams. It's just perspective cuts that reveal the soul of each project. It's really interesting, right? I mean, I think we all want at some point as architects to show the soul of our building. So naturally, that idea of showing the soul of my building stuck with me. Can I capture that soul for my project similar to how the Manual of Section create their drawings, but only using modern tools like D5 Render with the help of some powerful hardware like this HP workstation? The challenge, finding the cut. So for this image, I knew most of the work would happen inside of D5 Render using the section tool. So first of all, it's time to define the cut. Where are we going to cut? So at the top bar, I'll click on the section icon and then select the section plane, which is this one right here. Then once I click on, for example, this column, the section plane snaps right through the design and aligns to that column. If by any chance the section is on the opposite side of where you intended, just go to the section action option and click on B side, or by default A side. Also, make sure that the affected by light and affected by weather option are turned on. This will let more light in and avoid your image from looking too dark or too contrasty. But now, here's where most people freeze, and probably one of the hardest parts of doing a perspective section. Where do I cut it, my building through? And honestly, this isn't just a technical decision, it's a narrative one as well. Like, what do you want people to see, and what do you want to hide? What is the most undeveloped area, and how is the building understood best? So I considered 3 different options for this image. First, cutting through the core to show the vertical circulation through all of the floors. That was one option. The second option was cutting just before the cores to create a wide, horizontal, continuous floor and a very deep perspective that can show the rest of the building as well. Or third, cutting between the cores to show more of the back facade, but the caveat of this is you don't show the rest of the building or the rest of the platform, which I didn't like as much. So naturally, option 2 felt best for me. It showed openness and flexibility without interruptions. So I saved that as a scene in the top left corner, and I'm going to go back to the scene for later adjustments. So after deciding where to cut comes the fun part, right? Filling this section with detail and information for the perspective to look good. Building the scene. populating the space. So I'll start with the furniture. Since this is an educational building, there is a lot of tables, chairs, bookshelves, and doing it manually would take forever. So I'm going to use D5's custom path tool, which is one of the new tools that D5 recently integrated in its new version. So first, I'll go to the asset library and search for a table. Then I'll place it in the model and then search for maybe some books, some chairs, paper and clutter everywhere, like architectural clutter, and educational clutter as well, that can make this table seem like a study table, like you were going to spend an all-nighter here with your friends. And after I have it ready, I will select all of the elements that I just added on this layer tab. Right click and group them and name this group. Then I'm going to right click again and click on add to local. This way I can save this group to my local library and use it later in the custom paths. Now I'll make 3 more groups of different study tables, and I'm going to use different tables, different furniture, different chairs that can be used in different kinds of spaces and give different types of moods. I'll name each one and save them to the local library. Now for the bookshelves, I'll choose between these 2 base models that are also in the D5 asset library. And I'll place them inside my model, and then I'll add some books into them in different kinds of assortments, then group them individually and save them to my local library as well. Now in the top bar, I'll select the paths option. Then I'll select custom path. Now I'm going to click on the plus icon, choose a table group that you previously created, for example this one. Then just define the path where your custom assets are going to be located, like from here to here. And then I can adjust different parameters, like for example the density, the rotation of the objects, and offset them to make them look naturally imperfect. Oh, and a bonus tip, always zoom in and check that the assets actually touch the floor. When you group a lot of assets, they have different midpoints, so that can be off just by a bit. So the gizmo tool helps fix this floating furniture. Now once my first path is ready, I'm going to duplicate this path by using the gizmo tool and pressing the shift key and dragging it to one side. Then I'm going to select the duplicated path and replace the assets. So instead of a study table, I'll place some small bookshelves and of course adjust the rotation, the density, and height. And once one floor is ready, I can just duplicate the paths to the other different floors. But instead of leaving them identical, I will spend some extra time tweaking every level and every single custom paths using different furniture and different settings. Maybe change the orientation, swap some furniture here and there, scale your objects slightly, and that variation is what is going to give the section life. And this is what the image looks like with all of the furniture now in place. Really cool, right? Now the building feels inhabited. You can read its activity floor by floor if we zoom in. Now I know what you're thinking at this point. Most computers would already be begging for mercy, right? I know my past one would. Hundreds of assets, materials, lights, and reflections pushing the computer to the limit. You just hear the fan spinning and spinning like a small helicopter, and you'd be wondering, hey, is my computer going to crash? Is my computer going to overheat? But this is where the HP Z6 G5A comes in. And I'm not exaggerating. Good hardware doesn't just save time, it really changes your design behavior. So before I used to, copy paste the same furniture across the whole scene just to avoid any lags or crashes because my laptop could not handle any more than that. But now I can literally keep experimenting. I can swap materials, I can add more furniture, add more assets, test different lighting setups, and iterating freely all in real time. And let me show you a little bit inside. This workstation is running 128 gigabytes of RAM, an RTX 6000 ADA graphics card, and an AMD Ryzen Threadripper Pro processor with a massive 64 cores working in parallel. I know it's a lot of information to digest, but this setup lets me keep adding detail without worrying about lags or crashes in my project. So for big scenes like these, it's the kind of workstation you can trust and go all the way. And that kind of power means I can open massive D5 scenes, SketchUp models, and Photoshop and probably a little bit of Google Chrome all at once without even a hiccup. So for projects like this one, filled with trees, reflections, and complex lighting, that reliability really makes a huge difference. Because technology stops being a bottleneck and actually becomes part of the creative process. And the best part is that in the Z series of HP workstations are fully customizable, so you can tailor the specs to your own workflow and your own budget as well right on HP's website. So in case you're interested in tailoring your own workstation, visit the link down below. Lighting the scene. Now we all know lighting defines emotion. Lighting is probably the most underrated storytelling tool within architecture and architectural visualization. In this project, I wanted warmth, but I also wanted activity at dusk, when the building feels alive, there's a lot of people going in and going out. They just started doing their project. They have 8 hours to deliver it, different classrooms, a ton of people finishing the projects, various moods and sizes. And since I already have furniture paths, I can just duplicate these paths and replace the assets with lights from the D5 asset library. So I don't have to create the path all over again. So just for example, just select this furniture path, drag it up and press the shift key to duplicate it. Then replace the tables for your preferred light fixture, like for example, this one. And here I'll select these light fixtures, adjust the density, and then go on to the next one. Here also readjust the height so it coincides with the ceiling height. And the D5 asset library is full of really cool looking fixtures. It's more a matter of looking for the right ones. These are some of my favorite ones that I used for this project. And usually at this stage when adding lights, I disable vegetation and scatter objects to keep the viewport fast and avoid any extra or unnecessary lagging from my computer, although I know it could handle it. And after placing all of the light fixtures from one floor, just group them or select all of them at once, duplicate the group, and again adjust the light fixtures. So on one floor I'll have some big, bright, round and yellow lamps, and maybe on the next floor I'll have some dim sphere lights, or depending on the use I can have more darker areas or brighter areas. And after finishing, I can compare the before and the after, and the difference is massive, as you can tell. Soft, warm lights bring personality and rhythm to each floor. It feels like a city that is alive and that is working well. So also, since one of the bigger areas of the building is the platform down below where the main library is located, I decided to place much more lights there so it could shine much more and have a greater contrast from the upper or lower areas. Now it's time to add people. This part is really quick but powerful. People are always necessary to give scale to your design. Also, the amount of people you use can also communicate the time of day and activity in your building. So what I usually do is go to the asset library and select large groups of people to save some time and not place the people one by one. So small groups, huge groups, it all helps in giving some character to the building. So before adding people, it looked very architectural and kind of cold and minimal. Now after the image is starting to feel human and is starting to feel alive. Framing the shot. After adding people and furniture, I want to go back to my scene and fine tune the exact framing and the camera angle. So I'll go into the camera and select a 24mm lens. I find that for this case, it's wide enough for some perspective depth without too much distortion to the architecture and to the whole design. Then I'll enable 2-point perspective to keep my verticals clean, and then slowly fly around until I find a height that shows the roof platforms instead of the unfinished ground floor that I did not have time to finish. These are small details that can go a long way in the overall composition of your image. When creating a perspective section, centering the camera makes the composition balanced and easier to read. It creates a 1-point perspective effect and therefore directs our eye to the center of the image, which in this case is the elevated platform that we want to highlight. Now, to define the mood of my image, I know that I want the interior lights to shine and therefore not give too much importance or brightness to the exterior of the image, which, we already did the exterior render, so we don't need more attention to the exterior of the image. So something at sunset would be ideal to give more importance to the interior, but I wouldn't want a sunset set with a hard sunlight because it creates darker areas and overexposed and underexposed areas. So to brainstorm some ideas, I'll show you the AI tool I use that completely changes the mood of my scene in seconds. To me, it's one of the most powerful AI tools that are built inside a real-time rendering engine at the moment. And I'm talking about no other than the AI Atmosphere Match tool. So I'll open the AI Atmosphere Match and take a snapshot of the current view, and then try to find an image that maybe matches what I had in mind. Here I found this one, which I thought was pretty cool, so I clicked on generate, waited a few seconds, and there it is. It looks really cool like this, honestly. Here I'll just maybe adjust the HDRI just a bit, so I'll lower the brightness of the background so I can have more attention to the actual inside of the building, and maybe lower also the skylight just a bit, just so the image is not overblown. Next, in my effect tab, I'll lower the exposure a bit as well. I'll adjust the highlight, adjust the shadow, and lower the contrast and the saturation. I always find the images straight out of D5 Render have a lot of contrast on them already applied. So the majority of times what I usually do is I end up lowering the contrast and also the saturation. Also, a tiny bit of bloom will maybe give a nice touch to all of the interior lights that we have in store. Rendering the result. And finally, go to your objects and find your section plane, which is this one right here. After selecting the plane, I like to add a fill color to the plane. Here you can go crazy by selecting any color that you want if you wanted maybe a more conceptual kind of a color. And again, make sure the affected by light and affected by weather option is turned on. This will shine some more of that exterior light inside of your building and making it stand out much more than the exterior. And it will avoid it from looking too dark inside, of course. Now I'll define my fill color as a white color, and that's it. I'll go to my image tab to render, and this image I will render it in 6K and make sure I have my render ID channels on. I usually leave all of them on just in case I need them in the future. Now I'll click on render and wait a few minutes. Now, can you guess how long it will take to render this 6K image on this HP computer? To really test this machine, I ran the renders in different resolutions to see just how well it performed, and here's what I found. So a 2K image, it took about 2 minutes. A 4K image, it took about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is not that much of a difference if you ask me. A 6K image took about 4 minutes, and a 16K image, which is a huge image, took about more or less 21 minutes, which is a pretty good deal if you ask me. So to put that into perspective, my previous workstation, which I won't name the brand, would have taken at least 30 to 40 minutes for a 6K render. And assuming it didn't obviously overheat halfway through or shut down or just crash all the way. But with the HP Z6 G5A, I can render a 6K image while still having Chrome open, Photoshop running, and maybe even some music playing in the background. No lag, no stress, just speed. It's crazy to imagine that this kind of workflow is possible. So it's not just fast, it's stable, and that's priceless, right? For architects and designers, that reliability saves hours every week and keeps your creative flow unlimited. When you can trust that your workstation is not going to crash, you start taking bigger risks, right? You try bolder ideas and you get better results. All of this in a faster way. AI post-processing. After the image is rendered, let's first do some AI enhancing within D5 by going to the AI post-processing tab. Here, you must use any image that is in 6K resolution or below, because at the moment, it doesn't support 8K or 16K images. And the first thing I'm going to do is go into the AI enhancer, and with the selection tool right here, I will select the materials that are inside of the building and slightly enhance them. I'll wait a few seconds, and this is the result. You guys can see that the wood looks really much better in the second version. And now I'll pass on to the in-painting option. And with the selection tool again, I'll select the garden area outside of the building and do some in-painting to it to increase the realism of these gardens outside. These adjustments are really subtle, but they add that last 5% of realism, like finishing brush strokes on a painting. So this is the before and this is the after. The difference is small yet really powerful. And finally, I'll save the image and then I'll jump onto Photoshop for some final detail corrections. Final polish in Photoshop. Now in Photoshop, first I'll import the material ID channel that we exported from D5 Render. And here I'll select all of the areas that the section plane did not recognize, like this one and this one right here. And I'll also use the wand tool. Then I'll create a new layer and add a solid white fill. Also, these wooden beams were not recognized in the section plane. I'll create a white solid rectangle and copy it on all of the beams in my building. Now I'll import the ambient occlusion render ID channel and set it to soft light and lower the opacity a lot. Here I'm also going to mask out this map and only highlight the important areas. Then I'll create a copy and merge all of the layers and convert the new layer into a smart object. Then I'll go into the camera raw filter and start adjusting the light color and the detail. Here it's a little bit harder to explain each step, so I'll leave the screenshots of the adjustments that I did inside each tab, so maybe you can take a look at them and study them and analyze them in more detail. But what I can say is that overall I wanted to increase the brightness of the overall image without overexposing it, of course. I wanted to lower the contrast and of course make the inside of the building feel much warmer than the outside, and the outside make it less saturated and much darker. This will help in directing the viewer's eye straight to the important areas of the image, which is of course the building. And this is the image before and this is the image after applying the camera raw filter. I know the difference is insane and I can't wait for D5 to have all of these tools inside of D5 Render. Now here's the transformation in full, from a blank 3D model to a fully detailed perspective section, one that explains design, structure, and life in a single frame. So just for fun, I also used D5's AI style transfer to reimagine the image in different visual styles. Each version feels like a different world built from the same architecture. Now what's wild is that each style highlights a different truth about the project. So can one render really show everything about a building? After doing this, I think yes. That's why I want to thank D5 Render and HP for supporting this project. The HP Z6 G5A workstation handled every test I threw at it, and D5 made the whole process really intuitive and easy from start to finish. If you want to build your own HP setup, there will be a link down below, including a discount for your own workstation, along with a D5 Render sign up that also has a discount if you're interested. We're also going to do a giveaway, so comment below, how would an HP workstation plus a D5 Render setup improve your workflow as an architect? I'll pick a couple of winners, and if I reply to your comment, message me on Instagram to claim your prize. If you don't message me, I can't find a way to reach out to you. If you want to see the first video on this project series, click on this link right here, and if you like this breakdown, subscribe and like the video. It really helps creating more of these videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.